Is Iran now warning the United States of shocking surprises if Donald Trump insists on what Tehran calls his adventurism, hinting at new capabilities that have not yet been revealed or deployed? Is Iran furious after U.S. strikes allegedly forced cancer patients to evacuate a hospital, turning what Washington calls a military operation into a humanitarian crisis that could change the optics of this war? Are more than 200 patients on oxygen support and in wheelchairs fleeing U.S. strikes in Iran, with harrowing scenes from a cancer hospital now threatening to become the defining image of this conflict? As U.S. strikes allegedly hit near a cancer hospital in Iran, Tehran's army issued its freshest and most direct warning to Donald Trump, signaling that the Islamic Republic has not exhausted its options. On July 16, Iran's army explicitly warned Donald Trump to expect new surprises if U.S. attacks continued, framing the threat as a promise rather than a bluff from a military still capable of escalating. The army spokesman warned that any further hostile actions would trigger the unveiling of new Iranian capabilities, suggesting Tehran has been holding back weapons or tactics it has not yet chosen to use. The warning came directly after Trump threatened to strike Iran's power plants and bridges, a threat that would mark a dramatic expansion of the conflict's targets and its potential civilian impact. Amir Akraminia said, and I quote, "If the U.S. president insists on his adventurism and hostile actions, he should expect the unveiling of the Islamic Republic of Iran army surprises." Unquote. Iran has accused the United States of a barbaric strike near Shahid Baghai Cancer Hospital, a charge that is drawing international attention and putting Washington's targeting decisions under sharp scrutiny. Iran's foreign ministry claimed that 211 chemotherapy patients had to be evacuated from a hospital following overnight U.S. strikes, describing a chaotic scene of sick and vulnerable people fleeing in the dark. According to Al Jazeera, Iran said children, patients on oxygen tanks and patients in wheelchairs were all forced to flee the hospital, painting a devastating picture of the human cost of strikes so close to a medical facility.
4 explosions in a row occurred, so much so that the blast wave spread throughout, and the patients, even those downstairs, were truly affected by a very heavy wave. The special patients are all in a very abnormal condition, meaning there isn't a stable situation for the patients here. Unfortunately, it has been bombed so much that their breathing requires oxygen, and the machines we had, even they were shaken by the blast wave. It was so close that we thought perhaps the entire hospital was hit. Really, the entire staff, patients, and companions just rushed out. The patients were in different conditions. In the pediatric ward, the baby was in the mother's arms, the equipment still attached. One was taken in a wheelchair, the other was taken out with help. Everyone was evacuated.
Iran said the latest round of U.S. strikes killed at least 35 people and left more than 300 others injured, figures that, if verified, would represent some of the heaviest civilian casualties of the entire conflict. Iranian officials also claimed that 7 soldiers were killed after an army barracks was struck directly, adding a military casualty toll to what Tehran is framing as an indiscriminate attack on its people. Explosions were reported across a wide arc of southern Iran, including Keshem, Bandar Abbas, Shabahar and Karamabad, suggesting the latest U.S. operation hit targets spread across multiple strategic zones simultaneously. U.S. Central Command said its forces targeted Iranian military sites that had been directly threatening commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, framing the operation as a defensive action to protect global trade routes. Washington also confirmed that an empty oil tanker was disabled during the operation after it attempted to break the naval blockade, signaling that the U.S. is now enforcing maritime control with direct force. Iran has launched a fresh wave of military action, widening the conflict beyond direct U.S. targets and placing Washington's Gulf allies firmly in the crosshairs. Explosions were reported across Kuwait as the country's air defenses responded to what authorities described as incoming hostile threats. Kuwait says its air defense systems intercepted hostile drones as regional tensions surged. The Kuwaiti army said, and I quote, "The Kuwaiti air defenses are currently confronting attacks by hostile drones, following the sinful Iranian aggression." The General Staff of the Army notes that the sounds of explosions, if heard, are the result of air defense systems intercepting the hostile attacks. Everyone is requested to adhere to the security and safety instructions issued by the competent authorities, unquote. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it struck the CRAM early warning radar at Kuwait's Ali Al Salem airbase during its latest wave of attacks. The IRGC says Operation Nosser 2 also targeted an area where US troops were gathered inside the base. Iranian military officials claim they also launched drone strikes against US military facilities located in Jordan. According to Iranian reports, communication systems, fuel storage sites, and a fixed radar installation at Jordan's Al Azraq airbase were hit. Iran says the strikes on Jordanian facilities were carried out during the 9th phase of Operation Sarkar. Bahrain activated nationwide warning sirens as fears of a broader regional attack continue to grow. Bahrain's Interior Ministry said, and I quote, "The alarm siren has been activated. We urge citizens and residents to remain calm, head to the nearest safe location, and follow updates through official channels," unquote. Emergency warning systems were activated across Bahrain as security concerns intensified. The Gulf region remains on high alert as Iran expands its missile and drone campaign across multiple fronts. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claims it has shot down a US MQ-9 drone over Andameshk. The IRGC says the American drone was destroyed using one of its newly deployed air defense systems. Iranian media reported that air defense systems were activated across Tehran as the threat level increased. Reports indicate 2 US strikes targeted an area outside Iran's Kondab region. Explosions were also reported in Khorramabad as military operations intensified. Iranian media says additional explosions were heard near Parchin and Pakdasht, adding to reports of widespread strikes. The confrontation in the Strait of Hormuz intensified as the United States tightened its naval blockade. US forces reportedly struck a tanker attempting to sail toward an Iranian port during blockade enforcement. US Central Command statement read, and I quote, "US forces enforced naval blockade measures against Iran, July 15th, by disabling an unladen oil tanker attempting to sail toward an Iranian port in the Arabian Gulf." US Central Command, CENTCOM, forces observed Curacao-flagged MT Belma transiting international waters toward Karg Island. The commercial vessel ignored multiple warnings as it attempted to violate the US blockade. A US aircraft disabled the vessel after firing Hellfire missiles into the ship's smokestack. The ship is no longer transiting to Iran. US forces resumed the naval blockade against vessels transiting to or from Iranian ports and coastal areas at 4 p.m. ET on July 14th. During the first 24 hours of enforcement, CENTCOM has redirected 2 compliant commercial vessels and disabled 1 non-compliant vessel. US forces remain vigilant and prepared to ensure full compliance, unquote. A US aircraft reportedly used Hellfire missiles to disable the tanker during the operation. The Strait of Hormuz has become the center of an increasingly dangerous military confrontation. Iranian media says a US strike hit Keshem Island, causing damage to an industrial facility. Reports from Iran say a missile strike near a cancer hospital in Ahwaz triggered panic among civilians. Patients and staff were forced to evacuate as explosions rocked the area surrounding the hospital. US Vice President J.D. Vance claims efforts were made to derail President Trump's negotiations with Iran. J.D. Vance said, and I quote, "There's been this interesting dynamic here, whereas we've been trying to negotiate, there have been these extraordinarily well-funded efforts to tank the negotiation, to prevent us from reaching a deal, to change American public opinion." Unquote. With fresh strikes, drone interceptions, and naval operations, the conflict is expanding across the Gulf, raising fears of a much wider regional war.
Are you giving Iran a deadline before you start bombing?
I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know. They know the story.
So are you meeting?
They better behave.
Trump goes ballistic against Iran, launching a second wave of powerful strikes within just 24 hours of the previous attacks. Iran responds with missiles and drones, unleashing fresh attacks on American military assets across Kuwait and Bahrain. A key US logistics hub in Kuwait is engulfed in flames after deadly Iranian retaliatory strike rattles the region. The IRGC claims it deliberately targeted America's main logistics hub and military support center inside Kuwait during the assault. Several powerful explosions were also reportedly heard across Iraq's Erbil, raising fears that the conflict is rapidly spreading. Direct impacts were reportedly recorded near Erbil Airport, a strategic site that also hosts an important American military base. Reports further claimed US Patriot missile interceptors failed to stop the incoming attack and self-destructed over Erbil skies.